pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Prior to this evening's public meeting, the board did meet in a brief executive session to discuss personnel matters. So with that, board announcements and recognition, superintendent's report. Mr. Bigger.
Thank you, Mr. Norcross. The events of last week, while brief, were certainly a stark reminder that any school district is susceptible to random acts of violence. Yet the collective spirit of Cam South family persevered when called upon to act. I want to reiterate the continued need for parents in the community to engage with our youth on a regular and consistent basis about how they're doing. In addition, continue to use the 1-844-SAFE with the number 2 SAY phone number, or go to the website on Safe to Say, or call a staff member if you know anything. The 1-minute incident in the bathroom was a random act of violence with absolutely no precursor issues we are aware of at this time between the two students. Thankfully, the victim was treated and sent home from the hospital the next day. As with any incident in Chambersburg, we have completed our after-action review, indicating there was a thorough and immediate response in eliminating the threat and administering first aid. Moving forward, we will be increasing our, be more judicious with students who are returning, coming from other places outside the district or returning to the school. We have to stay within the confines of the law in order to make that happen. On a side note, I do believe the county would benefit from increased funding and therapeutic services for youth outside the school day. Thank you for that time for that statement. I have a few more items. Just so people know, tonight we are piloting the metal detectors for the basketball games. So if you've been to the football games, you're used to the metal detectors. Tonight's the first game. They're trying those out for basketball. Also, there was an event scheduled for you at 2 o'clock tomorrow with the foundation. That's canceled. So I got a notification. So if you were planning on that event in the high school at 2, that's canceled for tomorrow. I have been getting some requests for board members to potentially attend our schools just to walk through. And at some point, we can talk about the procedures for that. I believe also the Career Tech is opening their doors for board members to attend. We do have some upcoming presentations that are going to get pretty heavy here in February. So in February, reading by third grade presentation, estimated cost of the new buildings, and also borrowing scenarios. In March, 3-year budget proposal from the business office and myself, and then also revisiting the electronic device policy that was brought up about 8 months ago. And then in April, we have our 9 through 12 program updates on all things related to the academies, 9th grade, Career Tech, and the like from the presentation from the secondary folks. I do want to continue to thank the state for the new laws related to cyber school reforms. We are able to help students remain in school if they're truant. They're not transferring out to the cyber school, and the residency checks are going very well. I do want to report that the cyber schools are very supportive of that and have communicated back respectfully and also encouraged to follow that law. And that concludes my report at this time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bigger. I'll proceed with my president's report tonight. I believe in 2 years and 2 months, while Mr. Bigger and I have been in our roles, I don't think we've ever discussed what our reports are going to be. But we have done so this week as we've been in communication darn near every day. So since the events of last week, Chambersburg Area School District has been in communication with the student and family from Cam South. Furthermore, Chambersburg Area School District will continue to remain in communication with the family and the student to assist in their return to school, as well as any other needs and concerns they may have. Tonight, I give thanks and praise to be able to report that the student is home and is expected to make a full recovery. In the Norcross home, we have two things we believe in very strongly: grace and faith. We believe in faith and we trust. We believe in grace and we trust our faith. First, grace. I believe it is by grace we can give this report tonight of the outcome. However, in addition to grace, I'll talk about faith later. In addition to grace, I'd like to recognize everyone, and their list is long, and therefore I'm not going to list names, because if I did, I would end up forgetting someone for sure. First off, building administration for their quick and effective response, which allows us to be where we are today. Chambersburg School District Police, same thing for their quick and effective response, as well as outside police agencies, Chambersburg Borough Police, Chambersburg, Pennsylvania State Police, local EMS and medical staff who, again, were timely and effective in their response. The entire Cam South building staff for how they handled the building and all the other students in the building. Their actions and efforts, again, are to be commended. I'd like to commend Superintendent Bigger. I believe his messaging was spot on. And despite what you may see and hear in social media or regular media, I believe his message was spot on and right. The administrative staff, the whole district immediately, it was all hands on deck with this. Not just the administration, but the district as a whole. A lot of things had to happen Tuesday, parent pickup, caring for the other students and just trying to get, back to as close to normal as we could that day. Now, I said I'd talk about faith. I've often sat in this chair or one of these other seats up here, and I've talked about the culture of Chambersburg Area School District. I believe what I have heard, seen, and know about the events of last week is the culture of Chambersburg Area School District that has provided the outcome that we have today. I have faith that that culture will continue to grow and prosper. And I have faith that we will overcome this and anything else that comes our way. Now, on behalf of the board, I would like to, this is exactly the words from Mr. Bigger on Tuesday in his one video. On behalf of the board, we want to reaffirm this statement. To be clear, any student who acts this way with intent to harm will not return to school hallways in Chambersburg School District. Thank you. Item 4.01, Mr. Whitman.
Good evening. I'm going to give a brief report on two items this evening. One is on the DAO, this building's education center at the end of the hallway, an update on that, and then our Schools of Distinction planning that's in progress. But first, underneath your agendas, while you're in executive session, I placed kind of two information sheets on each one. So you can refer to the board report on the DAO Education Center first. I need to give a little bit of a history lesson first, because we have some new board members, not just new now, but new even since we applied for the Bipartisan Safety Communities Act grant a couple years ago. So when I first came into this position and we didn't have students that were going to outside placements because of COVID, we brought all the kids back. And I had to come to the board when we had our meetings over at the high school for a couple years, several times, increasing our numbers for students that needed outside placement, high need students. Some were special ed with high needs, some were behavior students, like the one Mr. Norcross was just talking about. And we had to increase our numbers a total of 3 times. I had to keep coming back to the board. We don't have enough spots at River Rock, New Story, and Yellow Breeches. Those are the 3 placements that we use, that we secure a certain number of seats for those places. Then we had the opportunity when Elise was up for our tax office here at the end of the building. And we worked a little bit through our C&I committee talking about we were looking at all the behaviors that were at Caches, and we needed something in between an outside district placement for disruptive youth and from Caches. We had a behavior classroom at Caches, but we still had a lot of behavior problems at Caches. And so we had the idea that we could use this space. Coupled along with, we were dinged by the federal government because we were suspending our students, like our subgroup students, a little bit higher than what we should be in their opinion. And they were right. We were suspending kids home for policy violations, major policy violations, sometimes up to 10 days. And there was a big gap because the students would be suspended and they wouldn't do any work at home. Their parents may be working, and the students had to, they weren't doing their schoolwork. They'd come back after a 10-day suspension, they're 10 days behind the schoolwork, and a lot of the students started giving up, and then they'd create more problems. And some viewed it as a vacation, when they were suspended. So we had to use some of our IDA money, the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, our federal money. The federal government said we had to use some of that money to help solve this problem. So we had about $400,000 from the IDA set aside that we had to use, and it came across my desk a grant, the Bipartisan Safety Community Act, federal legislation that we could qualify for because of our demographics in Chambersburg. It was a $2.4 million grant. Cherie Sullivan and I and Bobby Stein from the business department, we worked hard on this grant. And we're very excited when we were awarded $1.8 million. On the paper, I have the exact dollar figure, I'm just rounding, but about $1.8 million. And we did, through the board, we did a request for proposal. You approved to do a request for proposal after we renovated the DAO office to make 3 classrooms down here for an outside group to pilot a program for a couple years. We had 3 very different classrooms that we wanted to have down at the district education office. One was a place for, instead of suspension, it was going to be alternative instruction. So we'd have a special ed teacher here to work with our kids that were special ed this is in place of suspending a student. If they made a policy violation and they needed to be outside of the school for 3 to 10 days, they came to the administration building. And that was alternative instruction. The teachers would give the work. The folks here, River Rock, won the RFP. They would work with the kids to complete their work. So that's 3 to 10 days that they may be here for some sort of policy violation. So classroom 1 was alternative instruction. That met all the criteria that we needed to fix also with suspending a high number of students. The second classroom, we will call it a behavior classroom. It's CABS 2 is what we call it. These are students that were kind of in between. They may need an outside placement, but they're in our behavior classroom over at Caches or over at CMS, and they're causing a lot of issues. So we wanted to have something in between sending a student to River Rock, Yellow Breeches, or News Story, and we created a second classroom, a behavior classroom. And the third classroom we called Flex High. This is for students that are 18 years old, maybe super seniors. Could be a student that may have had a baby, a student that needs to work to support the family, a student that is behind on credits. Could be a student that has high anxiety, and being in a building with 2,300 other students isn't great for their education. So we created a Flex High where kids can come in a morning session or afternoon session or both sessions and get caught up on their credits that they're behind. And so some of the benefits I have on the paper in front of you, and we saw a reduction in discipline immediately, referrals at Caches, about 40%, which was huge. And we saw that attendance was starting to tick up. The students that we weren't suspending home anymore, so now they were here, when they would get back to school, they were more on track with their work. And we started to see an uptick in graduation. we feel that the principals and the directors very much are in support of keeping, our education center here. So we started meeting back in September, and we've had a lot of meetings with the directors and the principals talking about what can we do to make it even better. And so I'm here to report to you that we want to keep the alternative instruction classroom. We want to keep the CABS 2, the behavior classroom, as a place for when students may come back to us from a residential treatment facility, they can transition, make sure they're doing okay before we allow them in our classroom, or vice versa. They're not making it in caches, they're a detriment to other students' learning, that we can move them over here to CABS 2 before we place them at a more expensive placement. So we want to keep the alternative instruction, we want to keep the CABS 2. The third classroom, the Flex High, we have discussed and feel that our CVA teachers can handle Flex High, and any students. We weren't getting a high number of students that were coming in. We were getting students that wanted to be in Flex High, but they just did it through CVA. So our principal of our virtual academy said, we don't need Flex High over here. They can come to the high school if they want to come in and meet with a teacher. They only have to go in the front door, Career Center. They don't have to be in the main part of the building. And they feel that they can service all of our Flex High kids. But what we do need is a behavior classroom like this for some of our middle school students. So if we have someone that may be at an outside placement and they want to transition back to the school district, that we start here first in a smaller setting, make sure it's working, and also that maybe we have students that aren't quite ready for an AADY placement, which is a River Rock or Yellow Breeches or a New Story, but we might place them here in our CABS 2 classroom. So that's the outline of what we want to do with the Education Center. We've met many, many times working on efficiencies. How can we fund it without, we had a $1.8 million grant basically that helped to fund that, and there's a breakdown of how we spent the monies there. And we feel that we can do it with efficiencies. We have a couple positions that we've been holding on to that we haven't filled. One at Caches. We haven't used the second connections classroom at Hamilton Heights, where we can bring a teacher from there. We don't have a teacher there now, and we don't have an aide there now, but it's in our budget. We've been holding that. We can reallocate those positions. Maybe in the future, we may need to have a second connections class in the elementary, but for the last couple years, the numbers just don't support it, and they still don't support that. So we feel we have the efficiencies through the middle school, high school, and elementary division to really run this program without asking for more staff support. Some of the costs that were in the grant that we still want to see funded, we had Back on Track, which was tutoring for students at the high school. You'll see that that's listed in the monies down there. It was also part of the grant. We had that before we got this grant, and we were using ESSER money for that. Then we were able to use this grant money for that. That is an important piece at the high school for kids that are habitually truant. We have them attend Back on Track, and we help them get caught up. It's a great program where our own high school teachers tutor after school. That's something that we want to put into this year's budget. And the second thing, some of the commitments we made for positive behavior implementation support, PBIS, in the elementary division, where we use the grant to have teacher leaders in each school that are the PBIS coordinators. It's just a $2,000 stipend for each elementary school that we want to put into the regular fund. So when it comes down to it, we feel that we can really fund the DAO Education Center through efficiencies in our school district with a minor cost that we are putting into the budget for some of the other items that were part of that grant. So I'll wait, pause, see if you have any questions before I move on to schools of distinction.
Board members, questions?
So Kurt, maybe you could confirm that by eliminating the possibility of sending someone to River Rock or Yellow Britches or New Story, which is quite expensive, we can utilize the staff here, the programs here, and also eliminate the transportation costs, which should help mitigate, what we're doing.
Well, let me clarify that. We still need those placements for students, that a student may be expelled. We may place them for a variety of reasons through an administrative review process. So we still need the outside placements. But this, in the end, it is causing us to send more students out and me coming to you ask for more expensive placements. So it is a little cheaper to keep them here, and it gives us an option between, the school and an outside placement. And we like the location because it's very close to the high school. It gives kids a carrot that, hey, I want to do what's right here so I can get back over there. So
A little confused on the 700,000. Is that in addition to these 5 FTEs or in the 2 support positions?
when we consider an FTE, it's about $110,000. Is that right, Tammy? So it was the 110,000. So basically 550,000 there, and then 2 support would equal the other 150,000. We figure about 75,000. So that's what we're saying that it would cost to run the program, would be about $700,000.
So these are not people from the high school that we're bringing over from the existing classrooms that we have where the enrollment is, where it's not working, that we need them anymore. So we
Right. There's been an open position at Caches for a couple years that they didn't fill. Would be one of the positions. The Connections classroom at Hamilton Heights would be another teacher position. And then we have efficiency at the middle school, or 2 efficiencies at the middle schools that we can use to come over as well for the teaching positions. The support position would be reallocating one of our social workers to help support here. That's one of the support positions.
So this is a matter of moving people from that. It's not an additional 700,000.
That's
No, it's not additional.
There you go.
That's a great question. It's not additional 700,000. I'm just telling you
So you're
what it
moving
would.
internal staff
Right.
to this, and if you tally up their salaries, it would be 700,000.
Yes.
But
It's already
not-
budgeted
it's not
salaries.
Already budgeted.
Yeah.
That's the confusion
No.
that I was having.
Mm-hmm.
And then out of those things at the top that are listed, is the PBIS, are we going to have to fund that separately and hadn't been, or the Back on Track?
Well, the back on, yeah, I talked about those two items, back on track and the PBIS, we have put in as an ask for an increase in our budget request.
So they weren't in this year's budget because they were in with the grant.
They were in with the grant.
So that's an additional
Yeah.
300,000.
That was over 2 years, so you have to, the 140,000 was 2 years for back on track, so it's 70,000 per year for back on track.
Okay.
And then the PBIS, we are only doing the piece that's $26,000 per year, the PBIS, and that is for the stipends. So the 157,000 were a lot of supplies and things like that for PBIS, but principals can prioritize their building budget for the supplies. That was basically 52,000 of that 157,000 was for the stipends for the PBIS coaches.
So what was that, 52? What, 52?
Yeah, it's
So we're
26,000 per
trying to
year, I
pick
think.
up
What
the
put in.
52,000 and the 70,000
yeah.
in addition, and then the 700,000, it was already existing staff.
So it's a total of 96.
Yes.
It's a total of 96,000 that we're
Okay.
putting into the budget request for next year.
Okay, so that was a 2-year
Yeah.
total. I see.
These totals are 2-year totals.
Hey Kurt, could you just give me an idea of how many kids you've run through that program in the 2 years? I mean, not the breakdown of each individual one, but
Yeah,
just
I
out
can.
of curiosity.
The AI classroom to start the year, it takes a few weeks to get it into, thankfully. We'd like to see it empty for a while, but unfortunately, by the end of September, it's getting pretty full each day. And we allow for 6 spots from 9 to 12, so both high schools. And then we allow for 6 spots from the 2 middle schools per day. So 12 students per day in the classroom where students have violated, some sort of policy. So that's the AI classroom. The CABS 2 classroom is nearly full right now, so they have between 16 and 18 students in there right now, and that's the behavior classroom. And we're pretty full. Actually, the high school behavior classroom is a little bit over full right now. And then the Flex High, I would have to check those numbers because they have a morning and an afternoon session. I would have to get that answer to you. I don't have that offhand right now.
And just for my clarification.
But how many students come in is only a handful for Flex High each day.
Gotcha. So just for my clarification, if they're not at this particular facility, they'll either be back at the high school or in an outside placement? Or most likely in the outside placement because of issues that they're having in their schools?
That would be correct,
Okay.
especially for the cabs too. We would be suspending the kids back home if we didn't have the alternative instruction.
And in your opinion, I see what you have here, but you think you've seen a pretty good ROI, return on your investment, with the money there?
Absolutely. I think our folks feel that we can do it better internally with our
Okay.
own people, where we're taking, ownership and not having a subcontractor. We've had some hiccups, some, things we had to work with the administration of River Rock that, they weren't meeting up to what we wanted them to do.
Okay.
But I think that, having our own administrator in charge and our own employees in there, that we will run it even better than it is right now.
Okay.
But as a pilot, we are very happy with it.
Okay, thank you.
I think this is a benefit to the students who are in the programs, but also for the students in the regular ed classrooms, because the reduction in chaos that probably is happening is beneficial.
And I can even say, with probably the new schedule at the high school, Deb even reports, Mrs. Luffy reports that, discipline is even further down this year. But over the last 2 years, we saw incidents down 40%. And, a lot of times it's 3 to 5% of your kids that are causing 95% of your problems. And when we were able to pull them out of the high school, we had a lot less problems. And that's kind of what we want to now do with the middle school, with a CABS 2 program for the middle school, because there's some students that would benefit being in a smaller environment that's a lot more structured, and we can give them a lot more attention too.
But my point is that the 95% of the students who are not having problems are benefiting as well as the students who are having problems.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I like that that this has been put together, and I think it's been extremely successful because they can flex from the high school over. It's in proximity. There's opportunity because of the location of where it's housed, and I think that's a perfect scenario so that we can hopefully get these kids transitioned back when they're ready.
Any other questions for Mr. Woodman?
So I have the second part, if I'm
Shoot.
good to go. Okay. So the schools of distinction, it started 2 summers ago when we started talking about the blueprint, and we came up with our pillars, our 6 pillars of what we stand for, and we had part of the blueprint committee. We had administrators, we had lots of teachers, we had support staff, a couple community members, and we chose 6 pillars. And out of the pillars, I just want to remind you what they are: early childhood, career and college ready, high quality teaching and learning. I was just going to say teachers, teaching and learning, resources to support our folks in the classroom and students, governance and accountability, and then a positive and a safe environment. And really, when you think about our schools of distinction, falls under a couple of our categories, high quality teaching and learning, and of course providing the resources that our faculty and staff need to do that, and of course governance and accountability. And I'm going to talk how we tie those all together in our schools of distinction plan. As you've heard many times, Mr. Bigger talks about one Trojan community and schools of distinction. That's really where we're heading with this. So in the fall, I did a professional development with all of our administrative staff that are on the educational side. So it's principals, assistant principals, supervisors, even dean of students in the elementary school. And we did a session about the schools of distinction, where we have 17 schools, and each school you can think is kind of unique in itself. and we talked about what would it mean to be schools of distinction. And we gave them lots of different choices. I have some of those on your paper that you have there in front of you, like blue ribbon schools. Middle states evaluation, which is a very rigorous 15 to 24 month comprehensive self-appraisal and peer review process. Community connection schools. Those are schools that are generally higher in poverty. Instructional frameworks such as project-based learning, personalized learning, Cambridge schools. And then other recognitions like our US and News and World Reports, where you have the top 40% rankings, and of course middle schools of distinction. We presented what all of these are. We gave our folks time to discuss in groups. We did a little learning and doing where I had each building create a notebook LM. It's a basically an AI feature that helps, you can house all of the information that you're compiling and put it all together. We did a little learning doing session. Then we talked about timelines. We talked about each building creating their own building leadership team for them to take a deep dive into their data and where they think they need to go as a school to have the, the highest learning possible for their students in their building. So the timeline, the principals went back to the schools. They've created building leadership teams. They are meeting with those building leadership teams. They're looking at their data, and now they're talking about schools of distinction and which, avenue they want to choose as a school. So a little bit of voice and choice for the individual schools since they're very unique. Our directors are meeting with their principals. They're going to be looking at the plans along the way. Hopefully in about 2 months, we'll start to see some of the plans come formally to the directors and to Chris and I to take a look at, to give feedback and any adjustments with a culminating activity. Our original goal was May or June, but because it's tough to find times to meet for our building leadership teams, and they want to spend a couple days, maybe even the summer, working with their teams on their getting into the weeds with the plans, we may have the last set of groups, the last set of schools, come to board approval for their schools of distinction plans in August. The goal is that I would say would be June, but we may need to have some schools that do it in August because it's very tough to find quality time. You just can't do it in a 20-minute meeting. They need some solid time to get together. So that's about where we stand right now in our schools of distinction process. It's in process. We're going to be very excited when we bring you each individual school's plans on how they're going to get to schools of distinction by 2030. So, any questions?
Questions for Mr. Woodman?
While you're here talking about schools of distinction, is it possible that we could be informed, perhaps to the board, of what's going on the second half of the year with staff development, to make sure we are updated, that we stay focused on that the second half, those times that are open?
Absolutely. We're planning right now for February 11th, and we're planning for the March date.
If we can get that information. And I caught, it's a 2-hour delay. Is the 2-hour delay is it this week? I don't know.
Early dismissal tomorrow.
Early dismissal. What is that, what goes on during that time? If we could just.
Yeah.
We'll give you an overview in the Friday report.
Yeah, I would just like to peruse that. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Kurt, I have a question. So are we already on the path to schools of distinction? Because we've been hearing about a lot of good things that are happening, slowly rolling things out. Can you give me an example of something that you feel is already trending, if you will, among the staff in a certain school? I'm curious about the elementary level, because we keep hearing also about reading by 3rd grade.
Mm-hmm.
So which one of these is more tied to that?
Okay, so that's a great question. First off, let me answer the first part of the question, what schools are trending towards schools of distinction. I would have to say, first and foremost, Hamilton Heights, 3 years in a row being a US News and World Report's top 40% school. They've done a tremendous job. Our 2 middle schools, based off of just growth alone, where the kids come in and where they leave, and how many, you saw Last month, I had a list of teachers that were, we call them dark blue. We talked a little bit about PVAS, and our middle schools really are right there at that school distinction cusp, if not already there. The reading by third grade, we are going to be giving you a presentation. I think Mr. Bigger just told you it's going to be next month. It's actually going to be a little bit of a different presentation where Mr. Nelson is going to sit in front of you at a table with probably Lindsay Breslin, and it's going to be more of a work session presentation. So they're really going to dig deep into the reading by third grade, what it's going to cost the school district, and what our strategies and what our plans are. So to answer your question, are there any schools that are heading towards distinction based off the reading by third grade? I would have to say, what would you say about that, Mr. Nelson?
I'll try. So I would say all of our schools are hyper-focused on our two goals, the math goal and our reading goal. Everything we do when we look at Acadian's data, Acadian's was started last week, our MAP assessment window started this week. We're going to start looking at the numbers as they come in. We're talking about individualized plans for small groups and for individual students throughout kindergarten through fifth grade. So I would say that is a big push in the elementary level because there are two district goals. And when we talked, the president and I talked in February about the reading by third grade, I think you're going to like what you see and what you hear because we have big ideas that's going to help all of our students.
Okay.
Can
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing too? I know it's been mentioned repeatedly about Mississippi and how well they have done with their scores in the early K-3 or whatever. And as I have looked into that, they have put a lot of money into that, a lot of money. So, I guess I start asking questions, how do we switch it, arrange it, and so forth, so that we can get some significant money into this reading by third grade, because right now the monies have been extremely limited, as I've looked at it, for those kids. And, as we see this presentation, I mean, we've lost personnel in those areas over the years since I've been on the board. And, if we really want to have a strong foundation for these kids, we're really going to have to look at where we can get the money to help these kids, because when you're looking at 50% of your kids are not proficient by third grade, we've got a big problem in my estimation. And I know we tend to put a lot right now on careers and everything else at the secondary. We've really got to get that foundation, because it really is going to bite you in the end when those kids get up there and they're still struggling. So just throw that out there.
Any other questions?
How are you finding the improvement or lack thereof as a result of the kindergarten changes that you've made with the Kickstart and so forth? I've heard very positive things, but I don't know if that's official or not.
No, I think that's official. I think our kindergarten teachers are very happy where they get eyes on the kids before they come in. The staggered start really helps for when they start creating their groups. We have more plans for the kindergarten that you're going to hear in the presentation next month with Mr. Nelson. But the feedback has been great on the Kickstart and the staggered start.
So that is intended to continue?
Yes. Okay. And Mr. Nelson's going to talk even a little bit more about some parent involvement and toolkits and things like that next month.
I've got a question for either Mr. Whitman or Mr. Nelson. So can you say anything more about how, since a large part of our student body is English as a second language situation, how that component's going to tie into, the reading by third grade and so forth for those kinds of teachers or intervention specialists that might, assist in that area?
I'll let, you want to take that, or I can talk a little bit about that? So I know when Mr. Nelson talks about his reading by third grade and what we're doing with Walk to Read, we look at every student, all students. You know, if we have a student that is excelling, we're challenging them. We have a student that's in the middle, we're challenging them. We have students that need more supports, we're challenging them. We're meeting them where they are and what they're ready to learn. And, you know, I know Mr. Bigger talked about some visits. I would say when you do a visit, you should, you know, maybe go with Mr. Nelson or myself and visit a, you know, Walk to Read classroom so you can see how we're grouping the kids and how they switch and what they're working on is right at their levels. And you can talk to, you know, a reading specialist, you know, in the break in between and hear from them. But, you know, we're meeting every kid where they're ready to be challenged.
Yeah, and having subbed multiple times in a kindergarten class where I'm seeing Walk to Read happen, even kids that are struggling, they're having fun, so it's not going to be like they hate reading from the get-go. So I think it's a great program, and I believe it will be extremely successful.
Can I ask one more question I've been questioning? The Walk to Read, is that being used for all students in a particular classroom, or is that just for remedial students who need an extra boost?
It's for all students in each.
So you haven't.
We're now not in every building. Next year we'll be in every building. You know, we've been very systematic on how we started it. We started with 3 schools, then we add more schools. Yeah. Next year it's going to be all the schools. But we're very systematic on how we're doing it, but it's for every student that's in that classroom.
So the kids are divided into 3 groups and they go round to each
For the most part, yes.
So,
Mr. Woodman.
So they're divided into groups.
It's not the number of groups. It can't say 3 groups. So at Fayetteville, there's 3 kindergarten teachers. They work during that Walk to Read time with all of those kindergarten students and determine small groupings based on all of the kindergarten students. And they rotate between those 3 classrooms.
So they're going from classroom to classroom?
One time. So they change classrooms, and then in that 30-minute or 40-minute Walk to Read time, they're with their small group, and they stay in that classroom. And after Walk to Read, they go back to their homeroom. And the same thing in 1st grade. Now in 2nd through 5th grade, we have What I Need Now, which is called WIN, which is somewhat similar to Walk to Read, but the students aren't, grouped as much. It's more individualized.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Woodman? Thank you, Mr. Woodman. Thank you, Dr. Nelson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, consent agenda items. These are items 5.01 through 5.09. We use the same procedure been using. Ask Mr. Bigger and any of the admin team if they would care to comment or elaborate on any of those 9 items. And once they get a chance, then I'll ask, be the opportunity for the board members to do the same. Again, committee of the whole meeting, so we're just here to discuss these items. If we don't have any objections, these items will then go forward on the consent agenda next meeting for official board vote and approval. So, Mr. Bigger or team, any comments you wish, any items you wish to add comments to or elaborate on?
I just have one, that early graduation is scheduled, Mrs. Luffy, for January 23rd, 6 p.m. Yep, I mean, we've heard from a couple of you, so if you're planning on attending, please let myself, Mrs. Luffy, or who did the communicating on that? Who sent the notice out for? Yep, that's right. So if you're planning on attending, we need to know for your seats up on the stage. I think we have 2 attending as of now. That was it.
Any other admin? Everyone's good? Going around the outside of the room? Board members, questions, comments on items any of the items, 5.01 through 5.09? I'll give you, I have 2. First is a comment, not a question, on 5.01, the proposed LIU budget. 3.4% increase over the 25-26 budget. I've been thinking about this ever since we had the presentation. from the LIU director, and I've been concerned ever since that presentation. I asked him a question about what has been my understanding of a continued concern over at the Franklin Learning Center in regard to, it wasn't a matter of the available space. It was, is there staff there, right? There wasn't enough staff to service the needs of those coming. And I asked him that question because talking about expanding programs, this and that. And I was concerned with the answer because I think I got a politician's answer, and I don't think he ever answered the question. And my takeaway from that response and my concern is that this is going to become a supply and demand situation where, you know, there's only so much supply there and the demand will go up, that these increases will continue. Just a comment and just a concern that I have on that for, you know, 3.4% increase. You know, we operate in this district and we save in that 2 to 3% range for an annual increase. And so that's my comment on 5.01. Next one is a comment and probably a question on 5.02. Looking at the capital reserve fund transfer of $925,000. That is the plus 1%, correct, Mrs. Stout?
That's correct.
Yeah. And as we start getting into, as Mr. Bigger said, there'll be a 3-year presentation. And this plus 1 that we started 3 years ago now?
I think it's been 3.
Time flies when you're having fun. Anyway, you know, that plus 1 was designed to start building up the capacity for debt service. As Mr. Bigger mentioned, we're going to have a debt service presentation coming up here also. So in future years, that is going to be a big difference in our annual budget, whereas instead of plus 1 going to capital reserve, these 3 years of plus 1 plus the future pluses, and I won't steal Mr. Fry's thunder, he'll provide that to us when he gives his presentation, that'll all go to new debt service for the schools of distinction by 2030. So just a comment on that and something for everyone to think about as we start getting into budget season. If the question is in your mind, I've made this statement before, well, if we don't do a plus 1 transfer to capital reserve fund, how do we ever put money in the capital reserve fund? Maybe people get sick of my history lesson, but, you know, I believe we do it the way we used to do it, the old-fashioned way, and we fund capital reserve by saving money. That's what it's excess money at the end of the year that hasn't been expended. Then you transfer that to capital reserve in lieu of budgeting for capital reserve, because you're going to see some numbers with, you know, increased debt service that are going to make this 3.4% look good. So with that, any other questions or comments? These items will go on consent agenda for official vote in 2 weeks. All right. Item 6, education and services. No items there. Finance and facilities, gifts, grants, and donations. Again, administration, any questions, comments on any of those individuals? Gifts, grants, or donations? Board members, same question. None. Okay, that will also be a action item next meeting. Policy and legislation, first reading. There were 2 policies up, that will be up for first reading. Policy 215, promotion and retention. Policy 609, investments. And then item 8.02, there are 3 policies up there. Policy 146 for student services, Policy 229, student fundraising, and Policy 234, pregnant, parenting, married students. Same thing. Administration, any questions or comments on these 5 policies for first or second reading? Board members, questions or comments? Okay. You're right, Mr. Bigger is gonna be a quick meeting tonight. Item number 10, privilege of the floor. Got too many papers up here. Right, privilege of the floor, I'll invite up those members of the audience who did indicate they were gonna make a public comment. If you forgot to check yes or write yes, don't worry, you will get an opportunity also. First one is Parker.
Hello. My name is Parker Stoffel. I'm speaking tonight because of the incident last Monday. The reason being is other students and I no longer feel safe at a Chambersburg school anymore. My sister Aubrey Christoffel was at the school at the time of the incident. But not only that, she also knew the victim. Now I know I have heard multiple sides to the story and I don't know everything that went down. But I do know one thing, and that's something everyone in this room knows. This should never happen again. After this incident last Monday, I really took some time to think on this, and I realized that I'm not safe at a CASD school. I've realized that at any point a student can walk into one of the schools, like Camp South, and walk in with anything in their bag or pockets, and nobody will know till it's too late. We students and faculty should not be at this risk any longer. The district needs to regroup and take some immediate action to ensure our safety and make school a place all kids can feel safe. I believe there is a way that we can make sure our schools are safer so nobody can walk in with anything, and that is metal detectors. I know the district has 3 weapon detecting systems currently, as they have been displayed and used at football games and tonight at the basketball game. And if we were to put weapon detecting systems in the main entrances of our schools, we could provide this. For example, at Cash's, we have 3 main entrances where students enter in the morning. If we were to put metal detectors and x-ray bag checkers, not only will we be preventing weapons from coming into the school, but also vaping and smoking products, as they all have metal in them. That'll be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And all this, I only see 2 problems. I have answers for them. First, the cost. We can all agree that student safety comes first, and it's worth however much it is. Second, we would be disrupting the educational setting, as it would be a slow process to check all kids. For that, we can look into other schools and take after them and see how to do it in a quick and orderly fashion. I believe schools like Harrisburg are ones to look at. And if we need to do this as soon as possible, and I highly recommend to involve students in these decisions and planning, as we see things from a different perspective as students and not adults. Through experienced student involvement and insight work, I'm on the Cassius Student Advisory Council for the building principal, and other students and I have been in these discussions and have made good changes through a student's perspective. And I believe if we do this for this situation, we will make the right change. Ultimately, we need to take some immediate action to protect our students and faculty, and it should be a #1 priority. I hope after tonight, the district takes my feedback and makes students like me feel safe at school again. Thank you.
Thank you. Sally Solkov?
First, I just want to say to Parker, thank you for that statement. You remind me of everything that is good with the school district and what, that you were able to say that so eloquently. And I'm Sally Solkov.
There you go.
Solkov?
There you go. Thanks, Al.
I'm Sally Solkov, and I'm the mother of an 8th grader at Cam South. And I just wanted to speak for the community. I feel as a community, we want schools where children can both learn and feel safe, and where teachers are supported and not constrained when serious behavioral concerns arise. And we hope that decisions are guided primarily by the needs of the students rather than other unnecessary fears. I was really encouraged today to hear from Mr. Widman about how funds from the bipartisan Safer Communities Acts are being used to create better options for students. And it's good to hear that middle school is getting the attention that it needs. Because I think in middle school, more than in any other school in the district, kids are tossed together and they don't have, they can't go to the honors classes. They can't, they're just all tossed together. And I really came with a question and didn't mean to make a statement, but I wanted to just encourage the district to explain the process it uses to balance the needs of students with special needs with the safety and respectful learning environment of other students and staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Jordan.
Good evening. Before I make my public statement, I will tell you it costs $38 per student in this district to educate a student with the amount of students we have. It costs over $100 to incarcerate a person in the Franklin County Jail. Those numbers I figured out. If we can add $2 to that $38 for safety, I'm all for it. Now, here's my statement. At your last board meeting, conversation ensued between board members Faye Gogler and Sherry Diller concerning the International Baccalaureate program. I had plenty of time to mull these ladies' public comments over. State College dropped this program because of low enrollment numbers. I Googled this fact. Contacting our superintendent in an email, there are approximately 300 students in this program. There are 426 11th graders. There are 507 12th graders. Of that number, 300 or 32.2% of the 11th and 12th graders chose to be in these classes. That spells success to me. There is no set rule for any of the students to graduate from this program. Students take various classes in middle school, high school, college, and grad school for various reasons. They choose classes with the advice and consent of their guidance counselors and parents. I will read you two mission statements now. One is the mission statement from the International Baccalaureate program. The International Baccalaureate mission is to develop inquiring, knowledgeable, and caring young people who help to create a better and more peaceful world through intercultural understanding and respect, achieved by offering challenging international educational programs and fostering lifelong, active, compassionate learners who value diverse perspectives. The IB works with schools, governments, and organizations to provide rigorous, globally recognized curricula, then encourage students to become globally minded, action-oriented individuals. The other mission statement is from a well-known group of parents in the United States. It cites the following: to unify, educate, and empower parents to defend and protect their parental rights at every level of government. This is the mission statement of Moms for Liberty. Both mission statements are similar in nature. Why? Good parents have always been involved in their children's education. Finally, any cuts which might be considered here in any educational program by this board should come with the understanding these cuts won't affect the school budget or our annual school tax bills. A minute cut in any budget actually means
Okay,
nothing.
Mrs. Jordan.
Students
Wrap
are
it up,
numbers,
please.
they are people. You will get the rest of my statement in email, and so will a lot of other people.
Thank you. Mrs. Dolaway, was that a check? That's a no. Okay, I'm sorry. There was a mark there, but I didn't know if that was a check mark or a line out. No. Any other member of the audience wish to make public comment this evening? Yes, ma'am. Just So
I
we have
got
it
it.
for the minutes. State your name, please.
Yes, my name is Christine Elmer, and my son is an 8th grader at Cam South, and I have a 4th grader at South Hamilton as well. And both of my children were affected by Monday. My oldest was at the building, and my youngest knew the victim. And I didn't write a statement, but I wanted to say that as a parent, I think I've heard a lot of different stories about what happened, and I don't feel like until maybe tonight, I don't feel like I had much official detail after the fact. I think you guys did a great job letting us know that day. But I think that it would be great to have a follow-up, just because I think there's a lot of unknowns, and I'm hearing rumors continue. And so to have some kind of context, I think, would be helpful for the community. And I think that one of the things that I observed with this incident is that it showed some of the strain and frustrations that parents have with the schools. I know in the comments of Facebook, I'm sure you guys all saw all of that. And I also feel like I've heard some frustrations and strains that the school district might have with parents showing up or engagement. And I just think that this kind of crisis offers an opportunity for community building. I think having an opportunity for parents to come in or process or hear from experts about how to talk to our kids about this would be helpful. And maybe talk about, I think it'd be helpful to have a little bit more information on how we can help you when an event like this happens. So, you know, I think that it was, the idea that I got was that we got back up on the horse, you know, like we didn't close schools, but knowing that what the intention would be helpful. And having an opportunity to touch base with our kids, I think would have been helpful for parents' emotional state that day. And maybe a 10-minute chance where the kids can get their phones after everything's secured, so that we can touch base and know they're okay and support your effort to keep them in school. Because I know a lot of kids, mine included, didn't make it to the end of the day. I don't know, I have lots of ideas, but one of the things that I wanted to say at first was that when I've talked about this with my family and friends, I think one of the things that's most powerful is the stories I've heard about how many staff ran towards the incident. And I just want to please thank them and thank you guys for everything. I know there's a lot of feedback, but it's after the fact, and I think you guys did a pretty good job. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the audience wish to make public comment this evening? Okay, information, district enrollment summary, and disposal of books, equipment, and supplies. List is out there for your review. Item 12, new business discussion only. I have one, but other board members first, please. Any items for new business or discussion?
Yes, so I've observed, well, first let me say, I remember some time ago, we had a meeting and discussing food services, and there was a consultant brought in, and I think there's probably been a lot of good work done. I'd like to know if we could get on the agenda sometime in the near future, report from Jared Ford to let us know what improvements have been made. And coincidentally, I've been, I don't know if appalled is the right word, probably too strong. When I see kids take a lunch tray of food, and after the lunch is over, they walk to the garbage can, they throw half the food away. When people are having food insecurity in our country and then probably in our community for sure, to me that is such a terrible waste. And so I asked Mr. Ford, could he please cite the regulation, the law, the policy that dictates why that can't be repurposed in some way? And he said, perfect timing. The district is now thinking of a possibility of making a program and making that food available in some way, perhaps just to other students if they feel they would like to take that home or in some other fashion. But I'd like to know if we could get that food service briefing on the agenda so we could hear all the good things that are going on. Thank you.
Board members, thoughts on that? Like to see a presentation on that? Hear a presentation?
That sounds good.
Okay. We'll ask the admin to put it on their list and, when they feel there's a opportunity soon, let's do that. Thank you, Mr. Adick. Any other items? New business discussion?
Well, I'd just like to say, as far as the IB program, I think there's a lot of good things that have come with students in the IB program. Asking for information on financing the program and what it's costing us is all right. I think it's a question that could be asked. That doesn't mean that I am against the IB program. I'm not saying that at all. So just, for the future, when this discussion comes around again, I just wanted to clarify that.
I would piggyback on Dr. Diller's comment. I agree. It's perfectly reasonable to ask about the finances, but insofar as Mr. Widman is talking about schools of distinction, to me, if we want to have a school of distinction, that IB program should certainly be a part of it. Because not only is everyone interested in being, having a certification or a skill to work here in the community, but there are some students that aspire to go on way beyond Franklin County and make changes to this world and making it better. And I think IB program is certainly going to help in that respect.
Any other thoughts, comments on that matter? I'll add one, and then so I'll have two things then. But I've thought about that after the previous board discussion on it. And I know previously, over many years, the board has discussed minimum class sizes. I see this as that should be the litmus test for any class, whether that be honors, AP, IB, XYZ, whatever you want to call it. If we had a policy that said, whatever that number is, I'm not an educator, I don't know what that number is, but whatever's a reasonable number as far as good stewardship of resources, i.e. teachers, that we set a number, and then, as a policy. And again, regardless what the class is, if you don't have those numbers, then you don't run the class, regardless of what its prefix or suffix may be. That's just my thoughts on the whole IB discussion.
I think that sounds really reasonable. So, and I would add to it, maybe do the ceiling too. What's the max?
Yeah.
So that you end up with a range, and then there's action taken on either side. But I think that's very reasonable, and there's probably good reason for those numbers being different depending on the type of coursework, right?
Well, that could be put into policy perhaps, and the board can decide, like maybe there's a class of 14 and the number's 15. It could be brought to the board for approval if we would approve it. And if there's justification that the administration feels we should still run it, even if it's one off, that number that we set, there should be some flexibility. But I know from another district that was in policy, and it came before the board. Any class that was below 15 was brought to the board for approval or not.
I think if we're going to be getting into that, which I understand that, I think it will help get to what I mentioned, I think last year when we started talking about different things, that sometimes I think in an effort to offer a lot of things, we get a mile wide and we're only an inch deep. And so if we have that set number and then we say, okay, we'll pull that back in, and then we're not having 65 programs where we're kind of okay at some of them. We have 40 programs and we're really, really great at what we're doing there. And I think that for me, it's always quality over quantity. And I know that might upset some people if that ends up happening, but at this stage in the game, I think we're in the perfect situation with Mrs. Luffy coming in, doing the 9 to 12, adding the academies to really take a hard look, a business type look at what it is that we're doing. And essentially by doing that, Sherry, to your point, if we do look at that and we set the minimum and then there's some things that don't meet that, are we gonna find that revenue we're looking at to put back into the walk to read in that K to 3? So there's a lot of moving parts, and I think we're really primed for it. So as much data, and this is for me, I don't know how anyone else feels, as we move through this, data. I don't care if it's 700 pages. Just send it to me, Kurt, so I can dig into it, so I can make an educated decision. Mr. Nelson and Ms. Cashdollar, everybody, just send it all. Because the more I can see what you're seeing, the easier it is for me to support what it is that you're recommending.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and that pretty much is the point that I was trying to allude to when I brought that discussion up. As a matter of fact, one of the things that if we were not going to soon be in our larger primary, et cetera, schools, I would like to see highlighting of a different color in our district enrollment summary for those classrooms that are undersubscribed. On our enrollment summary, there is a highlighting if there's a classroom that is oversubscribed, but there's no highlighting to point out how many classrooms are undersubscribed. I don't know whether it's worth asking for that to be added to that enrollment summary, because as I've said before, one of the things I'm looking forward to whenever we move in a couple of years to the Green Village, 4 to 6, et cetera, we're going to see less of that undersubscribed and oversubscribed. Right. But right now, if you look at the district enrollment, it catches your eye whenever you see the oversubscribed. You have to look to see the undersubscribed. So if it's convenient to make a different colored highlight on that enrollment summary, if the classroom is undersubscribed, I would suggest that it be done. But it's not terribly important to me because, as I say, I think we're headed to solving that problem anyhow.
I just want to speak up and say that I love data, and I am hoping that it's less than 700 pages.
Me too.
No War and Peace novels?
There's a lot of graphs.
Another previous item in new business and discussions only, we had a discussion about the board member training and Mr. Bigger doing an aspect of that, and just asked him to maybe provide us an update here this evening.
Yeah, I went back to my old binder that I did in a previous district, went through the process. It'd take me about 2 months for me to get approved. And then we would do either the new board member training or the other one. I don't want to do both, but I could do one of them. But however, we had a superintendent meeting last week, and I took the same topic to the county superintendents. And we asked the IU to become an approved provider and provide the trainings over in Franklin County. And so they're going to work on that process so that Franklin County board members in the county, new and or re-elected, could go through the program right here with county other members. So you can have me do it, or we can have the IU do it. Both are available. They were open to it. The county superintendents were very excited about other board members from other school districts sitting with other board members from Franklin County. So those are two options that I bring back to you. So you guys give me some feedback on how you would like to proceed.
I say go with the IU, because I want my superintendent to be able to focus on everything we're doing here. Instead of that, I mean, I've went to the PSBA's, you know, I mean, it's there. I know it's up to Mechanicsburg, whatever, you know, but if it's gonna be a program, I'd prefer the LIU to do it rather than have you devote your time and energy to it when we got a lot going on here in the district. That's my personal opinion.
I agree with Mr. McKee.
Well, and I think there's an advantage regardless of whether it's a South Central Pennsylvania interaction that we've had whenever we do the PSBA, or whether it just be a Franklin County. I think there's an advantage to interacting with more than just our 9 board members, learning from other people that our problems are, in some cases, minor compared to theirs. As a matter of fact, one of the people that was in our session talked about having classrooms in a basement room that sounded pretty shady. So, you know, it really does have an opportunity for interaction with other districts. And I would have no problem with it being other districts in Franklin County versus a wider area, but
Yeah, we could take advantage of both. Yeah.
absolutely. Being a member of PSBA, we could go if we wanted to theirs in addition or in place of, yes.
I think I'm hearing that as a consensus, and I know I'm in the minority, so I guess that's what we'll do, but, I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I look at it as, I think, in a small group, when, you know, we're gonna talk about, you know, school board activities, school board means, methods, being a school board, I think it's great being in your own group. I think we can all be more candid with one another, as we are here this evening, as we do at times in executive session. I think that's paramount. But it sounds to me like the consensus is to do countywide. Sure the heck beats driving to Harrisburg. I drive there every day. Don't need to do it again.
I guess too, I'm just thinking, for those people who need trained, maybe poll them and see what works best for their schedules too. I think that would be an additional thing to do. Because I know some of us are already trained, some of us aren't.
I'm just asking a question, is this would be strictly for, like what we get at PSBA, only, yeah, you would be delivering the content however they see fit to do that. But it seems to me that there are opportunities throughout a 4-year term to get new information, and maybe, you know, that would be another opportunity, so that it's not just gonna be one and done. So that's my only thought about that.
I would think that they could offer it as an option for board members who were not just elected or re-elected, and if people wanted to attend when it wasn't their required training, but just wanted to participate, it would seem as though that could be an option.
You doing it, so that adds to the consensus.
I am too.
That's what it sounds like to me. Can we do it at Stanley Avenue?
Here at Currituck, actually, Currituck seems to be the logical place for a lot of things.
That's even closer. That's
Yeah.
better yet.
And then the follow-up to that, just, the county also wants to get back to county induction with the IU, where all our new teachers come together at least once a year and work together as a county. We do share a lot of our teachers. There used to be county induction, everybody went to do their own thing, but it makes no sense to have every school district doing their own thing. So when we share teachers all the time. So that was the piggyback conversation from the board training, was how about county induction for teachers? So we're going down a couple paths with the IU that are be very beneficial for us and the county. And we're the furthest from the IU, so we always get the less service. So I'm happy that the IU is willing to come this way a little more. As a person that's worked in Adams and Franklin County and not York County, I can say that. York County usually gets all the services, and the further away from York County you get, the less services. And you can tell Chris Marchese I said that too. He-
Chris Marchese says that Franklin County superintendents work well, better than any group he's seen.
Yeah. Yep.
That's why we've been understaffed at the Franklin Learning Center, I
Yeah.
guess, huh?
Exactly.
Any other items for new business discussion?
Just to let you know, there will be, Chris mentioned, but February the 20th, I think, is the date that the Career Center is going to offer a tour and orientation to what goes on at the Career Center. So if you want to get that on your calendar, if you're interested, more information will be provided, but Leslie Schuman gave me that date the other day.
Okay. Any other items? Hearing none, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.